Hello, this is Captain in Arms, and this video will discuss overhauling and expanding the in-game organizational and communication systems of Foxhole. Please forgive my very basic graphic artistry. I mostly work in radio. Additionally, I am focusing on the concepts and the final product. I am not going to focus on how we get there from a technical standpoint because I think that's for the devs to figure out. That being said, everything I'm going to discuss and advocate for has been done in other games, so it's not impossible. So, part one, the case for good organization and communication. First of all, why am I focusing so much on organization and communication, org and comms? Well, for the simple reason that Foxhole is completely and utterly dependent on players interacting with each other. The game is built from the ground up to be a team game. Rambos are fundamentally and intentionally penalized harshly, from low carrying capacity to the inability to self-heal to separate driver and gunner crew positions. You just can't do it alone, and there's a reason for that. But organization and communications in a game like this have to be top-notch as a result. If they aren't, trying to do anything complex with combat or logistics just becomes an utter frustrating nightmare, both in the limits of the systems themselves and even just from an ergonomic standpoint. It just becomes super frustrating. But if they are top-notch, if you lay down that robust foundation, the player base can just absolutely run away with it. What I'm so focused on is removing every possible roadblock that keeps players from working and talking with others. So when I say organization is top-notch, I mean that they have to be simultaneously simple and deep. Simple in that they are so seamlessly integrated into the game, a new player can figure out the system in less than 5 minutes with minimal tutorial and without outside help. But also deep in that they can be used in nearly any situation Foxhole can throw at the player. From someone who just logged in casually to massive 100-player plus operations and everything in between. So vehicle blitzes, naval combat, city sieges, just small infantry skirmishes, commando raids, inter-region logistics, anything you can think of. This system has to be able to support that and but at the same time, keep it simple and streamlined for the player. However, Foxhole also has imposed on itself certain limitations. That being believability in its own world. The devs have called this the no magic rule on several occasions. And that doesn't mean everything has to be realistic necessarily, but it does have to be tangible. For instance, it's not realistic that you can rebuild a town hall in 3 minutes, but it is tangible over something like an arbitrary King of the Hill style capture point that you have to stand in and then suddenly it's just yours. It doesn't make sense. The town halls, that's something real and physical that you can build. And yeah, sure, hitting a construction crane over it, that doesn't make sense, but that's just kind of glossing over. That suspends disbelief. That's tangible. That's believable, which is why I'm going to focus on that word, is believability. And finally, Foxhole requires organizational structures to be opt-in. That means no faction-wide or game-wide structures. Including voting for a faction general or region commander or kind of war council. I've seen these kind of suggestions pop up a lot. There are a myriad of reasons why logistically this just could not work. What if the elected official is offline? Who gets to vote? When is a voting period? When if someone shows up later and didn't get to vote? Do they just have to listen to this guy who's illegitimate because you didn't vote for him? Etc. But the biggest one is just the simple fact that players should only follow others if they want to. This is mirrored in the fact that a player's rank holds no authority whatsoever, and players can always politely walk away no matter what. Opt in. And any organizational system must reflect that. If players don't like the squad or operation that they're in, they can just leave the squad or op. If they don't like the clan they're in, they can just leave the clan. So if you feel there absolutely must be voting, just think of your continued presence in that squad, op, or clan as a vote for their leadership. It's part two, what we have and what we lack. So here's a list of all the ways to organize and communicate in the game as of update 26. So you've got operations, and in that there's basic grouping in a separate window. You just got a nice clean list of, hey, who's in the operation? Easy enough. And you have operations voice and text chat as well. Super helpful. And you also have a menu of operations to choose from. So if I log in, I need something to do. I don't really know what's going on here. Let me look at the list of ops. Okay, there's like 10 operations. We got logistics ops, artillery ops, naval ops, blah, 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 et cetera, et cetera. And that's super helpful. I'm really glad that that's been added in. Up next is squads. So you have basic grouping in the F1 menu. So in F1, if you hit F1, you can organize all the different menus. And one of them is squad name. So when you make a squad, you get a squad name. And then as you invite people in, you can reorganize the F1 menu, click on squad name. And then you can see that, oh, hey, here's all the people in Yankee 198. And that's all in my squad. So that's very helpful in organizing. You can also do map messages. So leave map messages for others like, hey, danger here, don't go here, or vice versa, big thing going on here on the map. As well as squad locking. That's a huge feature in squads that definitely fundamentally should stay in. A lot of debate over, what exactly, when does squad locking expire? What does the wrench do with that? I'm not going to get into that, but I do believe squad locking as a fundamental function should stay in. And then, of course, you got your chat boxes. Not going to go into all of that. You know how they work. There are whispers. I actually didn't know that was a thing, but you got chat boxes. And then, of course, your local proxy chat. You're hitting T and talking in your general vicinity for about 25 meters, more or less. That's the way to communicate. I will not be counting Discord on this list because it is a third-party program. Discord is incredible. Don't get me wrong. I have a Discord for Press Corps. I'm super happy that the devs went with Discord for the game community because you got over 60,000 people on there. Incredibly helpful. Love Discord. I'm a big TeamSpeak proponent as well. Love TeamSpeak. But I firmly believe that Foxhole should implement third-party features if enough people use them. And that goes for all games. If enough people download this mod or this feature, just put it in the game. And they fit within, and that assumes the feature fits within the game's parameters of believability. So here's what we lack. First of all, operations. One, we need a way to invite people to the operation. Please correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I don't think there's a way, if I'm leading an operation, to actually invite people into the operation. I have to tell people, hey, look on the op menu, look for the one that's, the name I put, and then join it. I can't just easily find someone like, hey, can you join this op? And just give them an easy invite for them to accept. They have to find it themselves. Another thing is we need to subdivide into the operations. So for instance, let's say I'm defending a city in this operation. I need 5 people guarding the west, 5 people guarding the east, and 5 people making some supplies. I want to subdivide into that, but there's no way to do it. It's just one big mass of op in that window, and it can get a little confusing if I want to organize in that way. And then, of course, drag and drop functionality between the subdivisions, very helpful. Another thing we need is a way to easily identify and work with other operations. Right now, if I'm talking to someone locally or in the chat box, I'm just talking to that individual person, when in reality, they could be part of a big operation that I don't know of. Another thing is we need admin powers within operations. I haven't checked this lately, but I think last time I checked, if someone is being bothersome, I can't kick them from the operation. And I think I could use a way to make the operations private. I'm going to double check that real quick, so this might get cut out, but that would be super helpful for that. And then finally, when you have global operations chat. So right now you can talk to other people in your operation, wherever they are, as long as you're in the same operation. And that's very helpful, but that kind of betrays Foxhole's believability that it kind of set up for himself. So that's kind of a flaw there that's just been kind of overlooked. Maybe a necessary evil for now until something comes along, but you just need to address it. So for squads, looking what we need for squads, first and foremost, it needs to work with operations. I understand why they are two entities now, because one came later than the other and we just haven't had the time to combine the two features. But now is the time to combine the features. We need subdivision. Use the squads as subdivisions in an operation. So when I make an operation, I initially make this squad. As the operation gets more complex, I need logistics, I need combat, I need a rear guard, I need, hey, we need artillery over here. Can you get that? 5 guys to get that? I can make separate squads, and I can, subdivide as necessary to make this operation run much more smoothly and help organize it. Instead of doing it in my head, I can now see it clearly on the boxes to my right. Chat boxes. I know there's a lot of things we can change there, but if we zoom out and think bigger picture, the whole thing is just too centralized. Honestly, right now it's just way too much chatter going on across everything, and we're kind of having these big faction fights and kind of just wrestling leadership amongst each other as a whole op, and it's hard to do, and it's almost impossible to do. So this whole chat box system, it's too big. It's hard to get anything done when everyone across every region is trying to make something happen. Now, I know there's individual region chats that, you won't see it if you're in, you won't see a chat in Frantic Coast if you're on Endless Shore, for instance. But even then, you got global chat interrupting everything, all these annoying things with it. So yeah, centralized chat, not very helpful. And then of course, going back to believability, just having this chat box in the lower right, it kind of betrays the believability that Foxhole set up for itself. Local proxy voice chat, just holding down the T button. You need some, could use some output hotkey control. So for shouting, normal talk, and whisper. Right now it's just a set volume that I think you can switch around in the options menu, but going to the options menu and doing that on the fly is not easy. And there's a lot of ways we can utilize that to better suit the situation, and I will go into that later. And finally, all of these organization and communication systems, they all have to be integrated and unified in a way that is just so essential that they can't be replaced by third-party software such as Discord. So if you're gonna revamp all of these systems, all of these items, they have to be in such a way that, they immediately become obsolete because, well, Discord's better. Discord has a easier time going about it. So let's just use Discord, guys. Its operations thing is annoying. Just use Discord. It's a lot easier. All right, so with all of those parameters laid forth, here are my ideas as to how to improve org and comms in Foxhole. I've ordered them from what I think is easiest to sell to the hardest. So first and foremost, local voice chat level hotkey. The goal of this one, allow players to quickly set output volume through a hotkey. I believe there's an option, there's a slider in the options menu to do this, but that can be cumbersome to do, especially in the heat of battle. Right now, when you talk by holding down the T button in your local voice chat, you have a radius of about 25 meters where someone can hear you before you start to taper off, and then eventually they can't hear you anymore because you're too far away. It'd be very helpful if there was a hotkey, let's say caps lock, I'll just throw one out there, where you can change that radius so it's smaller. For instance, we can change it down to half that, so about 12 meters until you taper off. And then a whisper where it's only 3 meters or, right next to someone else. And then the output level, the radius is there. So just to be clear, when I say output level, that means, if I set it to whisper only 3 meters or less or whatever, and even if I'm shouting into the microphone, you can only hear within that radius of 3 meters. And there are all sorts of applications for a hotkey like this. For instance, when multiple people are talking in a single space or an enclosed space, it can be helpful. So we don't talk over each other. I can just go to a normal radius or even a whisper if I'm talking one-to-one, and I don't really need to interrupt other people, and we don't need to be interrupted as well. Another big thing is stealthy movements. So bushes, if you're in tight formations and you want to stay stealthy, then having a whisper radius can be super helpful. And I think it's balanced as well, because if you're in a bush and someone else is in another bush across the street, you can't talk to that person. you have to stay stealthy. You have to stay in that bush. So I think there is balance there as well. But maybe you can talk across a wall, but that's it. You both have to be right on the wall in order to talk. So it's helpful and it's balanced at the same time. Of course, you would need a visible reminder at all times for when you use it that way, because I know people are going to forget that they're at whisper or forget that they're at shouting. So just put that visible reminder there whenever they talk. And yeah, this one super helpful and also balanced at the same time. All right, moving on to the next idea here is clan integration. Putting clans in the game, it's about time. I think the devs have already confirmed this on the dev stream that they're eventually going to make it official some way, somehow. I know there's some fundamental debate that people don't like clans, and putting them in the game would be bad or they're toxic, or I don't know, whatever. But clans are already a thing, and there is absolutely no way you can avoid it. It's like trying to ban political parties. You cannot do it. It's gonna happen no matter what. It's already a thing, so why not just make it official in the game? Because it's gonna happen one way or another. Might as well work with these entities and see how you can fit them into Foxhole and mold them in a way that works with Foxhole, so we don't have this third-party thing. So first thing I would suggest is to use a different term than clans. To me, the word clan sounds too fantasy, and Foxhole's a very World War-centric, very militarized world. So one term is outfit. I'm totally stealing that from PlanetSide 2. They have outfits, but it's just a good name. It's a good term for it. And it works it's how it's used in real life as well. That's a slippery slope to say how real life, but that's just how the mechanics of the word works. So let's say, hey, you're part of the 1st Division, 1st Infantry Division. That's your outfit. So that's a perfect name for it. Another one is regiment. I think KFC used that term. That works well because I don't think there's a finite number. There's not a finite number that you can picture of when you say regiment. It's not like squad where you automatically kind of know how big a squad is, but regiment, it's kind of vague. So then one of the big features that everyone wants is adding tags as a separate entity to their names. That way we don't have to keep changing our Steam names whenever we join or leave a clan. That's just super helpful. And when we're implementing groups into the game, we got to focus on promoting camaraderie while maintaining faction cohesiveness as either colonials or wardens. So no group-specific uniforms, first and foremost, because that's a big slippery slope that the devs do not want to cross until they've figured that out and got a solid hold on it. And I completely understand why, because if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So definitely wouldn't want to do it for clans either. But there are other things, for instance, custom internal ranks. So when you make your own clan or group in the game, you can structure it how you want, and that doesn't affect how you interact with others or how others interacts with you. It's kind of like a way for you to form your own group. So if I'm a big group and I want to have like a logistics corps, I want to have a fire support regiment. You can make those things in your group with custom ranks and custom ways to do it. It's a big way of promoting that camaraderie and promoting a reason to make the clan in the first place. And then finally, kind of a compromise between having a whole specific uniform to yourself, while at the same time promoting that for group patches and crests. I know in Call of Duty Black Ops, you could make your own profile identity by moving shapes around. You could do colors, custom, shapes and whatever. And that was very, very cool. And a great way to promote creativity and identification and just kind of build your own, sense of self. At the same time, however, everyone's immediately going to make swastikas. So then you'd have to make a way to verify it. Of course, that would involve some sort of tangible threshold as to when you do become a clan. So that's a debate in itself, but just that idea might be worth considering. And then when you're making a clan, you would it'd be very helpful if you made a link to an external website or Discord. And then when adding that clan page or that clan website, it would be helpful if you had a link to an external website or Discord, so that you know, if I make a group, I'd like I'd like people to see what we're all about, so that they can go to a clan or a YouTube video or what have you. Because you know, it already happens, and that people share Discord links, and people are still going to have Discord links no matter what, TeamSpeak links, and you know, websites or whatever. So just make it easy, put it into that menu, and just streamline that whole process. Very helpful. And what I'd like to emphasize is that when integrating clans, do not give group exclusive buffs or powers. Like, hey, if we make a clan and we have 50 people in a region, we get this, you know, buff or something, or we get this very special airstrike or you know, group bonus. That can be gamed. That can be. I think that distracts from clans interacting with the faction as a whole, and it becomes super insular. So I think we should stray away from that. So the underlying theme for all of these ideas in terms of making clans official is that they have to work with others, or, you know, other clans and non-clan people. So overhauling organization and long-distance comms, you know, that fundamentally promotes this. And that leads me to my next idea. And that is operations overhaul. Goal for this: seamless, clear organization while maintaining Foxhole's believability. First and foremost, get it out of the way. Operations can now subdivide into squads, and you now merge both. You can maintain that squad lock ability, because again, I still think that should be fundamentally kept in somehow, that mechanic. You can modify it, but keep it in there. And you can even add an operations lock. So if one squad in the same operation sees another squad vehicle, then they can work within themselves. And I'm going to demonstrate a lot of these lists here in a moment. I'd like to touch on that last item. Operations leadership now have admin commands. That's a big one, because people are going to be unruly. People are going to troll, or you know, people are just not going to wind up working with each other, and that just happens naturally. So the leader of an operation needs those admin commands to kick, to ban, to blacklist, and to make groups private. I know making operations private sounds counterintuitive, but again, if people are being unruly, it just... I might even... So I'm about to demonstrate a lot of these points here, but the big thing I want to touch on is the operations leadership. Having admin commands, that's a big one. You need a way to kick people, to mute people, if even if they're not being unruly, just muting them. If there's so much chatter and you want to focus in on someone, just mute everyone else and have that person speak, because you know, you're the one in charge of the operation, so you should be the one. And since everyone is joining of their own free will, it's opt-in, you should have the power to, you know, control the flow of comms. And of course, people can just leave if they don't like you. If they don't like you, and how you, I guess if they just don't like you, but also if you they don't like the way that how you're handling those admin powers. One big thing also is, instead of having something be private, maybe instead of making an operation be private, you could have it always be public, but to promote that you know, to promote that communal aspect of it, so that you don't have super insular groups. But at the same time, perhaps have it. But at the same time, you need a mechanism to get the trolls out of there, or have someone who's just got it out for you and does not want to see you work efficiently. You got a way to blacklist them. So if you don't want to make things private, that's fine. If you don't want to add that functionality, but have a blacklist functionality. So if someone's being a jerk, you can blacklist that person. They can never join your operation again. And I just realized that I never wrote that down on the slide, so I'm going to add it right now. All right, so let's see this in action. So here's a mock-up of what I'd like to see. So here's a mock-up of what I'm talking about. You've got your operation leader here who has admin powers. They can kick people if they want, blacklist people, and then I have multiple subdivisions. So I can have I have 2 squads here. I can make more if I want to. I have unassigned players that just joined, for instance, so I can drag them in. Drag and drop functionality, super helpful. I say I'll put them in that squad. If not, then I'll put them in this squad. And I can just assign as necessary. And I can even rename the squads as well. So let's just say West Patrol, you know, East Patrol, etc., etc. And this is seamless. You could have it be in the way in the corner of your screen so that it is, in terms of UI, you can make it so it's very, very streamlined and, minimalist, so it doesn't interfere too much. But, we've already got in the game. We've already got this operations thing in the game. So let's make it as functional as possible and make it easier on leaders to be able to communicate their ideas of what they want done. All right, so as I said, these are going to get harder to sell as I go down the ideas, but this one's a big one. Long distance comms overhaul. Long distance comms overhaul. The goal here, make long distance comms more versatile while introducing believability. So earlier I mentioned, when you have a radio item, either a handheld radio or a radio backpack, that now gives you access to a communications menu. And from that comms menu, you can connect to people. All right, so here's a mock-up of the hypothetical comms menu that would come up if you had a radio or a radio backpack. I bring this up and I see the three entities in which I can interact with. I have individuals. These are people who have radio items themselves, and they're not part of an operation. I can also talk to stockpiles. Each stockpile has its own radio built in that communally people can talk to. And of course, you have operations, very important to talk to as well. These are the names of operations. Pardon my fake bad names here. But let's go through each one individually. So I wanna hail Mark Foot on the radio. Click on that. I now get into this special menu. Then this is peer-to-peer comms. It's like a personal phone, essentially, to think about it one way. Individuals. These are people who are not in a stockpile or in an operation, and I can join and make this voice/text chat. Obviously, this works best. All of this whole overhaul works best with, of course, microphones. But let's not leave our people out who don't have mics. So everything that you're going to see here has a chat box as well. A big thing here is that it is not just me hailing someone and then it's just direct line one-to-one. I can make my own chat room. So earlier you saw two names, Mark Foot, Clapfoot Adam. I can bring them in as well. Again, as long as we're not at a stockpile or if we're not in an operation, we can communicate here. And it's very versatile, very customized, and it's very versatile, it's very customized, and you can work along with it as you see fit. And you can make the system work with whatever situation you're in. So if you need to talk to Clapfoot Adam and Mark Foot, you can talk to these guys. You don't have to make an operation and go through all that headache, even though you don't want to make an op, but you do want to talk to each other. You're not in a stockpile. That's fine. Just talk to these two guys. And of course, the person being called, the person being hailed, has admin powers. That's very important. So to cut down on abuse, get that right out of the way. You can blacklist people. You can mark yourself as offline. You can unequip the radio. That way you don't have to deal with all of this if you don't want to. So that's peer-to-peer. That's individuals talking to each other. Going back to the comms menu, we now have stockpiles. As I mentioned earlier, stockpiles have their own radios built in. So let's say I want to talk to a fort here. I'm now at the stockpile radio. This is structure-centric communications. It's like a communal phone booth. It's like a communal phone booth, to think of it that way. And this goes for all spawn areas. So that's town halls, encampments, and their upgrades, forts, and safe houses, and anything else I may be missing right now. And if you can spawn there and has a stockpile, you can access a radio in it. So as you can see, I, as an individual, am not part of a stockpile in operation, but I am talking to this fort. And in this fort are two people who are already connected to it. And so, for instance, Julian and Phil, they're both at that fort. And they are engaged in communications, not only to each other, but to another stockpile and an operation. We've all chosen to talk to this specific stockpile. And that's, it's versatile. You can work with it as you want from the outside. Everything's set, all the action is centered around this fort right now. So that's why we are all connected to it. Going back out to the comms menu, finally operations. I want to talk to an operation even though I'm not in an operation. And I need to talk to them. So here I see Casey has the admin symbol, so he can ban me, he can kick me, he can blacklist me. That's fine, that's his choice. That's fine, that's his choice. This is task-specific communications. Think of it like a specialized phone. Operations menu, and then this first and foremost, this assumes that everyone in the operation. So first and foremost, this menu here. So first and foremost, this menu shows operation members who have a radio item. There are, let's just imagine that there are 10 people in this op called Recon Guys, but of those 10 people, 3 of them have a radio item. You can see that there's another person from a different operation here, and then as well as me, an individual, and then people from a stockpile can talk to us as well. Again, in and out. Again, the comms can work. Again, the comms can work with the situation. If something develops and I need to talk to this operation, if something develops and multiple people need to talk to this operation, multiple people can connect to it. People can connect to it. Other aspects to this idea. So other aspects and questions you may have concerning this idea. First and foremost, there is going to be no chance for enemies to intercept communications. That means, let's say I'm a colonial or whatever, and I kill a warden and he has a radio and I pick up his radio. I'm not going to be able to instantly get a clear shot into all of the warden's radios. No, if I pick up that radio item, it simply defaults to colonial radio or whatever faction I'm a part of. And this, and as cool as, intercepting intelligence and listening in on others, as cool as that can be in theory, if a feature is able to be immediately infiltrated like that, no one is going to use it. And they're going to default back to third-party software, TeamSpeak, Discord. If someone can easily tap into it, no one's even going to use it, and it's dead in the water. Radio items still maintain their detection ability, so that is completely unchanged. If you have a radio item and you have watchtower set up, you can still detect things going on the map automatically. That is still maintained. That doesn't change whatsoever. You can use it you can also use it while out of menu, and you can multitask. So let's say I'm talking to an operation here. This can all be shoved to the side, either as a UI that you can bring up. It can just slide out, and you can see it. That way, if I'm mining, this makes my mining much more interesting. I got my radio, I'm mining, I got my sledgehammer, and I'm talking to people at the same time, so I can work with others. Like, hey, I just saw like 3 trucks pass by the sulfur node. Are they going somewhere? Do you guys know anything about this? And I'm talking while working, and I can imagine a lot of helpful scenarios where you can multitask with this. You can also hail through maps. So I'm going to plug Sethfire and Castow's map here, and everyone else. So let's say I am a warden. Say I'm a warden and I'm here in the pits, right? And I have my individual radio item, my radio backpack. I can just bring up aside from the comms list, I can just go to the menu, I can just click on Brian Glenn here on the map, and there I'm talking to the stockpile. I'm talking to Abandoned Ward, the forts nearby, any encampments that may be here that I can see on the map. I can just click and talk, and the menu is right there, and then I can go back out and continue on my merry way. Another helpful feature is to put radios, put your phone on speaker, quote unquote, so that if I have a radio backpack and other randoms are in my vicinity and I'm hearing something vital on the radio, I can put it on speaker and suddenly everyone else can hear it. And there's a strategic aspect of that too. Maybe enemies can hear that as well, but that's my choice to make. And then here's one that can kind of be tweaked as everyone here sees fit. And then radio range limits. So we have handheld radios and we have radio backpacks. So naturally that lends itself to the idea of having more powerful, more farther reaching range than the other. I don't know exactly what those numbers can be. For instance, handheld radio could be 2,500 meters, while the backpack is 5,000. Those are very precise numbers, so they may be difficult to implement technically. So you can have it instead if you have a handheld radio, it goes to one region over, or if you have a radio backpack, then you're unlimited. There's no limits whatsoever. And that can lend itself tactically because a radio backpack is heavy, but you need that backpack because you need that connection to the stockpiles and to encampments and others. So then, you've developed this role in itself as the radio man. This one's going to have a lot of questions to it, I'm sure. Feel free to leave it in the comments. But assuming you implement long distance comm overhaul and an organization's overhaul, then we have the case for removing chat boxes. Okay, hold on, wait. I know knee-jerk reaction is, what the hell are you talking about? Stick with me here. The goal of removing chat boxes: reshape how factions work to be more direct and focused. And this one absolutely relies on a comms menu and overhauling the organization as well. So if you assume the previous two things are implemented, the previous two overhauls are implemented, and you remove the chat box, that fundamentally changes the dynamic of how people communicate with each other in a faction, specifically to be more direct. So instead of someone just putting a blast out in world chat, hey, there's enemy tanks here in Endless Shore. Now someone can go on the radio with a very handy stockpile nearby. They can go on the radio and make an emergency hail to a nearby group. So if someone is at say Abandoned Ward is under attack from tanks in the south, I can call Callahan's Boot. Is there anyone there? I can call operations that would, theoretically be up here in the top right corner of the UI. And you kind of remove this dynamic of players being able to lead a whole faction through the chat box, and instead you can be more direct. And it forces players to interact with each other and learn to work with each other because, hey, you can't just put out a bulletin for everyone to see. Maybe through a map message, but in terms of details, if let's say I'm over in Callahan's Passage and I'm mining, and I'm looking at the map and I have my radio out and I see, on the map, a whole convoy of things going up north, I'm going to call Abandoned Ward. I'm going to call them through my radio, connect to them and be like, hey, is there anyone there? There's like a few, things ready to kill you. And there's just all sorts of ways that, these things can play out. And, I kind of prepared a defense for this one. So if you remove chat boxes, it's right in line with the philosophy of the other mechanics. With the chat box, you kind of have that thing to fall back on. But in a lot of other cases, you don't. When you spawn, you don't have a weapon with infinite ammo like you do in other games. You got a pistol, 2 magazines, and you're screwed if you use it. There's no more port bases to fall back to. There's no guaranteed supplies except for the ones at the start of a war. After that, after the supplies are dried up, you got to make them yourself. Same thing with communications. You can't just put something out in the world chat box or even the region chat box and someone will immediately come to help you. You've got to hail stockpiles. You've got to find other people with radios. Now, at the same time, the chat box is useful because it helps new players. So if they wind up on the map and they don't know what they're doing, they can just put a call out for help. So this would need to pair with a revamp of the new player experience, tutorials, tooltips, maybe even a mentor mechanic. That's a whole other video separate that we could discuss. But Omniscient Chat Box removes that helpfulness, so that would need to be compensated in some way. But removing chat boxes also makes the world feel a lot bigger, right? If you think about how social media makes the world a lot smaller and you can talk to anyone, be friends with anyone all over the world as long as they have internet, and you remove that, suddenly your whole world gets a lot more gigantic. And the same thing happens in Foxhole. If you remove the chat boxes, it kind of pushes that sense of exploration and pushes that sandbox further. Now, with radios being such a critical item now, they would have to be cheaper, maybe make more per order. Here's a radical idea. Maybe even make a handheld radio a default item. If a handheld radio has a range limit, that balances it out. But removing chat boxes would be enough to justify a new default item there. And of course, finally, it fixes that believability. You no longer have that omniscient chat box that you can just default to, and it's always there, and like that connection to that easy automatic connection to the outside world suddenly fixed up. All right. So in case you haven't picked up on it by now, a lot of this, while thought out, was off the cuff in terms of my delivery. So please, if I came off as pretentious or annoying in any way, I seriously apologize. I just thought that this was the best way for me to get these ideas across, and I genuinely appreciate anyone who stuck through the end on this and gave me a chance to listen through all my stuttering. And thank you so much. I'd really appreciate it if you discussed or expanded on specific ideas with timestamps, because that makes it that much easier for me to engage with you and hash these out. So again, thank you so much, and I hope this generates a discussion.